So there's this massive misconception in the entire Naruto fandom that Bijoos, or the tail beasts without Jinchurikis, their hosts, are much weaker, and that in order for a tail beast to achieve their true power, they need a Jinchuriki host. So whenever there are versus battle debates or videos discussing the power levels of Bijoos, they say, well, it depends, if you have a Jinchuriki then it's gonna be more powerful and stuff like that. However, that is not correct. Just having a Jinchuriki in of itself doesn't mean the Bijuu will be more powerful. It's only in very specific cases. When the Bijuu and the Jinchuriki have a bond of friendship, aka a perfect Jinchuriki, they become stronger than the sum of their individual strengths because they can complement each other and work as a team. If you take Killer Bee for example, he could use Gyuki's powers when he was in base, extending his limbs using tentacles and all that. He could also tap into the power of the entire tail beast, unleashing the 8 tails completely. The same thing applies to KCM2 Naruto, who becomes much more powerful than just the 9 tails by itself. Obviously this is because of the avatar thing. Nobody else really has the avatar except Roshi and Hana. They kind of have a Bijuu avatar that we see in the Minato manga, even though they are obviously not perfect Jinchurikis. But when the Bijuu and the Jinchuriki manage to combine their forces and work together, that's when the Bijuu gets more powerful because they have a Jinchuriki host. However, for every other case where the tail beast is not a friend of the Jinchuriki, which is essentially the rule, this is not going to happen. Now, a lot of people are going to say that Yagura was a perfect Jinchuriki as well. He could tap into the tail beast form. He was friends with Sambi, but that's not true either. Yes, it is stated in the data book that Yagura had full control over the tail beast, but that does not mean Yagura had a bond of friendship with the 3 tails. As a matter of fact, it seems to be pretty much the opposite. Yes, he was probably much better at controlling the power of the tail beast than anybody else, kind of like KCM1 Naruto for example, but Yagura wasn't friends with Isobu just like KCM1 Naruto wasn't friends with Kurama yet. So he had a greater amount of control over the 9 tails there because he was better at using the jutsus and the chakra of the tail beast, but they weren't friends, meaning that Yagura was not a perfect Jinchuriki like Naruto would eventually become and like Bee was ever since he got introduced in the series. I mean, if Yagura was a perfect Jinchuriki, then Obito would have never been able to put him under a genjutsu, am I right? That's literally one of the best advantages of a perfect Jinchuriki. The Bijuu can awaken you from the genjutsu. We see that time and time again with Killer Bee and Gyuki. And Obito was able to put Yagura under a genjutsu for a long time, essentially puppeting him to control the Mist Village to Obito's whims. And a lot of people say that this is a feat for Obito and that he is insanely strong because he was able to put a perfect Jinchuriki under a genjutsu. But no, it's just that Yagura was not a perfect Jinchuriki and Isobu wasn't feeling like awakening him out of the genjutsu. So there's that. Obito could control Yagura. But that doesn't really answer the question why people think that the Bijoos without their Jinchuriki hosts are less powerful, even when it comes to non-perfect Jinchuriki hosts. Well, oddly enough, this also has to do with Isobu, aka the 3 tails. And the misconception was born in a filler episode. Won't you look at that? You see, in the manga, Toby and Deidara, they go to capture the 3 tails, which currently had no Jinchuriki host. Deidara and Toby easily take care of the 3 tails. They suffer no injuries, no scratches whatsoever. However, in the anime, they add an additional scene after the 3 tails is defeated. And it's the scene where Deidara is towing the 3 tails with one of his birds, while Obito/Toby is lying down on the 3 tails' body. Now, that scene is funny. I don't particularly hate it, except for the entire misconception it spread, because they give some dialogue to Deidara when he's talking to Obito and he's like, oh, it was easy to defeat the 3 tails because it didn't have a Jinchuriki host, so it didn't really have a mind of its own. It was just chaotic and a beast, so it wasn't really thinking strategically. It was very easy to take it out. This is the statement people are extrapolating this fact from, which comes from a filler scene, which shouldn't be taken into account whatsoever. Now, the first thing to bear in mind is that this statement doesn't really say anything about the power itself, the sheer strength of the Bijuu being decreased because it doesn't have a host. It only says that the tail beast doesn't have a mind of its own and it's dumb, essentially, easier to fight. But this is completely bogus. If you've seen Naruto to its completion, you will know that every single tail beast is capable of thought and are sentient individuals individuals, actually very wise sentient individuals, because they've lived for thousands of years. So they should be smarter than your average Joe in the Naruto verse anyway. In the war arc, the Nine Tails was strategizing for Naruto, Kakashi, Guy, and the Eight Tails. Like, Kurama was literally the captain of the fight against the 10 Tails. It's insane. Like, the Nine Tails is not dumb at all. It's very smart. It also comes up with a strategy to put Kakashi into Obito's Kamui dimension so that he can punch Obito when he's phasing through things. And we see that every single tail beast is capable of speaking, of thinking. And even though the Three Tails / Isobu isn't exactly the most talkative tail beast, it's still a sentient individual that should be much smarter than the average person. And now that it doesn't have a Jinchuriki host and the tail beasts can essentially live freely, just like they lived before the age of ninjas, a Three Tails in that situation should be able to do things like the Three Tails wants to, and use the Three Tails' free will to do whatever it wants. I mean, Isobu was living in that lake, not really bothering anyone. I suppose he just wanted to be kept alone. But then Deidara comes in and blasts him into oblivion. What are you gonna do? I mean, Deidara's obviously more powerful than the Three Tails. We even see the tail beasts using their intelligence and thinking and talking before Naruto Shippuden in part 1, when Gaara awakens Shukaku by going to sleep. Shukaku is talking to Gamabunta, to Naruto and all that during their fight. And yeah, Shukaku's kind of cuckoo, but anyways, he still could think. Gaara willingly let himself be taken over by Shukaku, losing control over the beast so that he could win the fight because he thought Shukaku was more powerful than himself. The same thing happened when Yukito was fighting against Kakuzu and Hidan. She let herself be taken over by the Two Tails, by Matatabi, so that she could have a chance against the Akatsuki duo. And when they did that, they lost their control over the tail beast. They couldn't influence the tail beast's decisions, meaning that even though, well, they were losing control of their bodies and letting the tail beast do the job, they thought they would become more powerful by allowing the creature to take over their bodies and fight for them. So this filler statement Deidara gives here is absolutely bogus and spread this massive misconception around the Naruto fandom. Now, one could say that when Naruto went 4 tails and then 6 tails against Pain, he was pretty insane and out of control, but there was an intermediate state. That state is not exactly Kurama controlling the situation. It's the chakra trying to take over Naruto. The sheer hatred of the chakra will act like a loose cannon. That's why the Nine Tails was prompting Naruto to remove the seal completely during the fight against Pain, so that Kurama could take complete control and wreak havoc the way she wants to. Now, the reason why they give this filler statement to Deidara is to justify the previous arc, which was also a filler arc in the anime. Now, a lot of people, for whatever reason, love this arc, which is the Gurren arc. I mean, I guess Gurren has a cool design and her jutsu is really cool too, like the red crystal and stuff, but it's a pretty boring mid-arc. And in that arc, fodder ninjas from the Leaf Village, like Ino, Tenten, and all that, they're able to contend against the Three Tails, so they have to somewhat explain how on earth are they able to contend against the Tail Beast even though they're fodder ninjas. So yeah, they give this statement to Deidara, oh, the Tail Beast was weaker in his normal state without a Jinchuriki, even though this statement makes absolutely no sense for every single reason I outline here. But like this video if you learned something, also subscribe to this channel if you haven't done so already, and check out the Bijuu retcon that was done in the Naruto story. Did you know that Bijuu didn't exist in Naruto Part 1? Check it out. Thank you so much for watching.